Thank you, ma'am.
Senator Coons.
Thank you, Chair Hyde-Smith and Ranking Member Gillibrand, Secretary Turner. Welcome. Thank you for the chance to be with you today. I appreciated receiving, finally, your budget submission, and I look forward to getting to know you better and to work with you. I'll just mention right at the outset, Madam Chair, that my week had a positive start because I got to visit a project built by a faith-based organization from the Mennonite community to address youth aging out of foster care in a rural community known as Greenwood, Delaware. And I'm pleased, as are you, that the youth aging out of foster care program will be sustained. But I'm gravely concerned that several of the tools that were used to make that project work are not being continued. I was a county executive. I spent 6 years of my life working on housing. We were responsible for the second largest housing authority in my state. The Housing Authority didn't own any units. It was all private sector, private landlords, but working in partnership with us and with HUD. And I'm working on a bipartisan piece of legislation with Senator Kramer of North Dakota called the Choice and Affordable Housing Act. And it would make housing choice vouchers more accessible. It would do a better job of attracting and retaining private sector landlords to the program. It's got a wide range of groups involved in housing production, housing advocacy, supporting it. And I'd like you to commit to working with me on that legislation to see if we can make progress on improving the Housing Choice Vouchers program. Is that something you'd be willing to work with me on?
Welcome back to the Constitution Corner, where we break down the news, expose the nonsense, and defend American values. If you're new here, make sure to hit that like button, subscribe, and ring the bell so you never miss a dose of common sense. Today we're reacting to a Senate hearing clip featuring Senator Chris Coons and HUD Secretary Turner. If you haven't seen it yet, buckle up. This one is a masterclass in how the federal government continues to fail Americans while blaming everyone but themselves. Let's dive in.
Thank you, Senator. It's great to see you, sir. And I do look forward to seeing the language and hearing from you and your staff and how we can work together. Obviously, the housing affordability is a top priority of mine and taking care of American people and also people to see people live lives with self-sustainability. And for the youth aging out of foster care, you know, I'm looking forward to working with this committee and also with the First Lady as we take care of our youth to make sure that they land on solid ground in the days ahead.
Well, you heard from Senator Gillibrand, and I'll repeat the same thing, a passion on my part for working on the conversion of formerly commercial buildings to residential buildings. I'm close with a developer in Delaware that's done that a number of times successfully. As Senator Gillibrand knows, it's very difficult to do. Some properties lend themselves to it easily. Some properties are almost impossible. We have a significant challenge nationally. We are not producing enough affordable housing. We're not producing enough housing in urban centers. We're not producing enough housing in rural areas. And taking underutilized or vacant commercial properties and appropriately transitioning them to housing for those who are either homeless, unhoused, or underhoused is another thing I'd love to work with you on. But I must say, just right off the top, that I looked at this budget. You are a person of faith, as are the rest of us on this panel. You share a commitment to caring for our vulnerable neighbors, the least of these. But this budget, Mr. Secretary, is not a serious proposal. It does not meet the urgent housing needs of our country. A 50% cut to all the programs at HUD would be devastating to families and goes well beyond right-sizing a bloated agency, which was your phraseology. I think it takes a chainsaw to programs that I've worked with for years and that I've seen help the neediest Americans. As county executive, I relied on the home program. I've worked closely with the SHOP Sweat Equity program. I've supported and worked closely with the Continuum of Care program, whether it's HOPWA or housing for the elderly or housing for persons with disabilities. The solution to eliminating all of these services and then rolling them up into a new block grant program, I will assert, Mr. Secretary, will simply shift the burden onto states and counties. States and counties will end up being forced to pick up services for people who will become newly unhoused. That may not be your intention, but it is certainly my intention to test and push and challenge some of the assumptions underlying this. The administration is shifting the burden onto states and counties for a lot of other programming, for food assistance, healthcare, education, and that will badly strain state and county budgets to also move housing affordability for seniors, for the disabled, for families with children. I think goes beyond streamlining HUD services, but leads to fewer people receiving services. Let me just talk a little bit more about CDBG and home. As county executive, home was absolutely critical to our working in partnership with local nonprofits, several of them faith-based. It required a non-federal match, a robust non-federal match. It allowed us to build affordable housing, especially for disabled folks in our county. It helped 44,500 individuals a year. Do you actually believe state and local governments have the ability to pick up the costs for services that will be shifted to them if all of these programs are eliminated?
Thank you, Senator. And I appreciate your perspective on everything, and thank you to your service, both locally and here nationally. Senator, HUD has record funding, and currently we're only able to serve 1 out of 4 eligible families with $77 billion. Mm-hmm. And I alluded to this before, and I will say again, we have to do something different because what we have been doing over these many years has not been working. Stewardship has to be a priority. There's a lot of waste, there's a lot of fraud, there's a lot of abuse in our system. And we can't, when I alluded to saying, you can't keep running the same plays. What I mean there's the best teams that I've seen in my career are the teams that make adjustments. We can't keep running the same play because it's causing us to lose. Well, that's what I feel like in America today, in particular with HUD, we've been running plays that have caused us to lose. And so, sir, this is a different way of looking at things. It's a rethinking of how can we get states to have skin in the game. I do realize, I understand the responsibility that you speak of, but this is a way for states to identify their unique needs and then to distribute their funds as they see fit. They can identify those that have been successful and fund those. And so it's a way for the states to uniquely get involved, to be very deliberate and decisive of their stewardship. And so, sir, that's the paradigm that I'm talking about. That's the culture shift I'm talking about. It's a new way of looking at it, a new way of rethinking it. The home program, to be honest, over the last 33 years has built 1.3 million units. That's only 32 units a year. And it provides gap funding, but the other funding has been $185 billion. So I think we have to look at this in a different way and do it better.
Mr. Secretary,
Yes,
with all due respect, I welcome and appreciate some fresh thinking or a new look, a new attitude, but cutting funding by 50%, cutting the HUD workforce by a third, is not going to produce any significant increase in housing production. You can reorganize, you can right-size, you can reanalyze existing programs. I would reject the assertion that the home program, as administered in my county, was rife with waste, fraud, and abuse. I'm not going to defend every home program in every county in America because I can't, but I know the ones I was responsible for. I met with the Delaware home builders earlier today. Many of the folks in the room I've known for decades. One of them is among the leading builders of quality, affordable multifamily housing in America. And they probably don't want me to quote them right now. But their comment was the staffing cuts that you've pushed through this agency, reducing by a third the total headcount, means that getting projects approved that have to have an approval, a sign-off on a mortgage or a sign-off on a project approval, their wait times have gone from months to projects not moving forward, falling apart. And they cited to me the potentially disastrous consequences for low-income housing tax credit projects, for home projects, for Section 232 and 202 projects, of having all the staff with experience and expertise managing these gone, and then all the funding shoved into one big pile and sort of pushed at the states to say, you come up with your priorities. In the room full of folks I just met with who have decades of experience building housing of all kinds, high-end, mid, low, multifamily, single-family, inner-city, rural. These are guys who represent the whole scope of the home building industry in my state. They were not optimistic that working together, we were going to generate more housing. And I'll say one last point on one comment, if I might. Senator from Rhode Island, senator from Hawaii, senator from Delaware. The idea that we're going to solve this problem by accessing federal lands, that doesn't build you one single unit of housing in my state. East Coast, there's not a whole lot of relevant vacant federal land.
Right.
And I dare say, although these are not my states or my geography, in states like, Wyoming or Montana or Utah, my hunch is the infrastructure cost to connect out to and build on available vacant federal land may not pencil out. Let me conclude. I'm way over, and I apologize, Madam Chair, but I was the last, so I figured I'd take a little moment. Thank you for what you've said today about the values you bring to this work and about working together to find the right balance. And thank you for your willingness to take on a challenging department at an important time. But bluntly, Mr. Secretary, I think we need to produce more housing, not less. And I look forward to working with you to try to find ways to do that in keeping with our charge of stewardship. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you. Without objection, this letter from the First Lady Melania.
Senator Coons, a longtime liberal from Delaware, opens with a heartfelt story about a faith-based organization in his home state helping youth aging out of foster care. And to that I say good. Faith-based institutions are the backbone of American charity and community support. They're doing what government never could, helping people directly with accountability and compassion. That's America at its best. But then the senator takes a sharp turn and starts crying foul over proposed cuts to HUD. He's outraged, not because people aren't being served, but because he believes more bloated federal programs are the answer. Folks, let me tell you something. This is the classic big government mindset. Throw more taxpayer money at broken systems and expect different results. Secretary Turner comes in with some common sense, which is rare in D.C., let's be honest. He says it clearly. HUD has $77 billion in funding and can still only serve 1 in 4 eligible families. That's a stunning failure rate. And rather than keep running the same losing plays, as he puts it, Turner wants states to have more control and accountability. And what does Coons do? He doubles down on the old playbook. He rails against cuts to programs like Home, HOPWA, and others that have been around for decades. But where's the data showing these programs are actually solving the housing crisis? Where's the transparency? Where's the efficiency? Let me make it plain. The federal government does not build housing. It regulates, it subsidizes, and it often gets in the way. It's the private sector, with local partnerships, that creates homes. When you centralize control in Washington, you get paperwork, red tape, and waste. When you empower states and local communities, you get results. Now, I have to call out one of the most telling parts of this exchange. Senator Coons is livid that HUD is cutting 1/3 of its staff. And why? Because it means delays for approvals and red tape processing. Think about that. The system is so bloated that fewer bureaucrats mean the whole thing grinds to a halt. That's not a defense of the system, that's an indictment of it. He even says homebuilders in Delaware are watching projects collapse because no one is left at HUD to approve paperwork. Folks, this is exactly why conservatives call for limited government. When success depends on bloated bureaucracies, you're already losing. Turner's proposal to give states control over block grants is a smart one. Let each state identify its own needs. Let them fund the programs that work and cut the ones that don't. That's real reform. That's real accountability. And frankly, it's more constitutional than this Washington knows best nonsense. And don't even get me started on this fantasy about federal land solving the housing crisis. As Turner rightly pointed out, federal land isn't going to solve Delaware's housing issues, or Rhode Island's or New Jersey's. This is just more DC dreaming. You can't plop housing developments in the middle of nowhere and expect people to thrive. Infrastructure, jobs, schools, all of that matters. Bottom line? What we saw in this hearing is exactly why Americans are fed up. Liberals want more power in DC, more taxes out of your paycheck, and more dependency on failed programs. Conservatives like Secretary Turner are trying to fix the system by decentralizing control and demanding results. So I say this. Let's keep fighting for state control, for private sector involvement, and for common sense reform. Because if we don't, the same broken policies will keep producing the same broken outcomes. That's it for today, Patriots. Drop a comment below. Do you think HUD should be slashed and decentralized? Or should we keep the bloated bureaucracy alive and well? Don't forget to like, subscribe, and share this video with every freedom-loving American you know. Stay strong. Stay free. And as always, defend the Constitution. We are the Constitution Corner, where Americans' root guides its future. Until next time, stand strong, speak truth, and may God bless the United States of America.